r/the dark gathering. Posted by u/Johnny_MP. The Solar End. Part 1. Prologue. On November 12 St, around 11:23 am, the Sun released a powerful solar flare. It soared through space, gathering portions until the flare ultimately impacted Earth, creating devastating effects on the human population as well as the environment. Beautiful colors similar to the aurora borealis now spanned the globe. Mere seconds passed before things got out of control. The entire electronic infrastructure collapsed, sending the world, as well as its habitats, into the void. This was seen as nothing more than a nuisance at first. However, an imperilment began to emerge, as certain individuals started to show signs of unnatural mutations. Almost half of the population morphed into unsettling creatures. Cities instantly became overwhelmed, as any attempt to stop the mayhem proved fruitless. The chaos that ensued played a role in humanity's inevitable decrease. Those who weren't originally mutated nearly befell to those who were. In defiance of all that was lost, an innumerable proportion of survivors sought the will to carry on. Sadly, that number slowly dwindled. The survivors would call the event that nearly ended the world, the Solar End, and the creatures that were spawned from it, the pests. These survivors were all that stood against the complete annihilation of humanity. The hand they were dealt wasn't an ideal one, and yet they'd continued to carry on, even with all the challenges that were bestowed before them. Part 1. Patrick Adams, a 29-year-old male, was part of a handful of employees who all received a letter only moments before clocking into work. The letter stated that today was their final day working for the Dunder Mifflin Company. He was given a box to place his belongings. He then was escorted out of the building. Unsure of what to do, he stumbled his way into a park. He sat on a bench, allowing himself to be distracted by the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, and the smell of freshly cooked hot dogs. Unfortunately for Patrick, it could not drown out those thoughts that lingered in the back of his mind. "I can't believe it. What the hell am I going to do now?" Spotting a trash can, he rose from the bench and walked towards it, emptying everything the box contained into the trash. Shortly after doing so, he looked at his watch. It was 11:15 am. He then spotted one of his co-workers, a woman named Joanne. "Hey, Patrick. They also gave you a letter?" she said. "Yeah," Patrick replied, taking a seat on the bench. "I don't know how I'm going to pay rent this month," Patrick chuckled, before turning his voice sour. "How can they fucking do that? You know. Here, take this letter and fuck off, you no longer work here." "It's not right." Joanne sat next to Patrick, as he continued with his rant. "It's fucking ridiculous, those fucktards are cold-hearted bastards." Patrick stopped talking when Joanne scooted a little closer to him. "I'm sorry," she said, pulling her hair behind her ears. Patrick nearly choked on his saliva when their eyes met. He cleared his throat, before talking again. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I just lost my job, Patrick. I'm not exactly in a good mood." As soon as the words left her lips, she furrowed her brows and slumped her head down, before picking it back up. "Sorry. It just feels like my life is crumbling, like no matter what actions I decide to take to better myself, it all eventually leads to an engulfing flame. I'm tired of getting burned. I honestly enjoyed my job." "I did too," Joanne laughed in amusement. "You constantly complained about Kevin microwaving his chili, and you always showed up late. Being 30 minutes late is better than not showing up at all, and Kevin's appalling attempt to heat up his homemade chili always leads to one of us sterilizing the microwave," Patrick laughed, before continuing. "Thinking back, maybe it's all best. But, hey, there was one thing I enjoyed while I was still employed." "And what was that?" Joanne asked, and before Patrick could answer, the sound of a phone ringing interrupted the two. "It's my parents," Joanne said. "I have a feeling they're not going to be that excited about the news I'm going to share with them." Joanne rose from the bench. "I should probably get going. Can't wait for the "it's your fault you got let out" speech when I get home. See you around, Patrick." As she started to walk away, Patrick stopped her. "Hey, wanna get lunch?" Joanne didn't answer right away, leaving Patrick's face to slowly drop. "I mean, we don't have to, it's only a suggestion, to stall the argument that will befall upon you, but it's fine. I'll see you." "Sure, I mean, I would love to," she said. Patrick smirked. "I can carry your box." "I think I'm just going to toss it. I stole office supplies and I don't know why." "Like, I don't need any of these things," Joanne laughed. "All the more reason to toss it." They both smiled. As Joanne stood over the trash can, the ground beneath her rumbled, as the sky flickered. She lost her footing. Patrick spirited towards her, cupping her right into his arms. "You okay?" he said. I'm all right," she blurted out. "What was that? An earthquake?" Patrick said. "Whatever it was, Joanne started to cough." Joanne?" Patrick whispered. Joanne swiveled her head away from Patrick, vomiting a slush of green goo on the ground. She cupped her hands over her mouth. The vomit poured through, as she began to shake uncontrollably. "Joanne." Patrick took out his phone, attempting to dial 911 for help. It won't turn on. What the fuck? He opted on yelling for help. As he looked around the park, he noticed that several people shared the same spontaneous misfortune as Joanne. She croaked, tilting her head to look at Patrick. His face did not only drop, it completely plummeted to the Earth's core as he saw a weird transformation occur. Joanne's eyes sunk beneath her glossy surface, her mouth agape to unnatural proportions. She continued to hurl that green goo from her mouth, as her hands seemingly aged 100 years, becoming thin dried-up raisins. Patrick's heart chilled, his face became snow-covered, as he slowly yet forcibly expelled the breath he had been holding since the start of Joanne's transformation. He couldn't dare to look away as he saw Joanne's legs fuse together before suddenly being split down the middle, becoming oversized pinchers with jagged edges clashing against each other, making a ch noise. She then whirled her body so that her belly was facing the ground. She shot her head towards Patrick. He jumped when he heard a cracking noise, like bones realigning. Suddenly 8 tiny lobster-like appendages rupture out from her stomach. She continued to spew the goo from her mouth, only this time as it hit the ground, it sizzled. "Joanne?" Patrick said defeatedly. Joanne, or whatever she's become, dashed forward at Patrick. The speed seemed impossible given what she had turned into. She grappled Patrick to the ground, her green goo dripping down his face, causing his skin to dissolve. With her thin shriveled hands she wrapped, then pushed Patrick's head inside her jaw, enveloping him in the moist hollow exteriors that formed her mouth, encapsulating him as he weakly punched the side of Joanne's face. He was still partially alive, although unable to scream. He could still think, why is this happening? The Solar End. Part 2. Chris Mayfield was a police officer before the events of the Solar End. His partner, a woman named Aubrey Jones, mutated in front of him while they were out on their morning coffee run. He couldn't help but stand by in utter shock as her skin drained from color. She fell to the ground, as her spine ruptured, blood quickly seeped through her police uniform. Chris unholstered his pistol, and aimed at Aubrey. Her jaw unhinged, dangling from the skin that managed to hold it together. Her ocean eyes drained, leaving nothing but empty sockets. She extended her hand out towards Chris, who didn't bother to reach for it. Aubrey killed 7 civilians before being gunned down. A thought spiked Chris's mind. He ran back to his cruiser. The cruiser wouldn't start, so he decided to run home. Upon becoming an officer, he swore that he'll protect the defenseless, and yet when he heard the call for help from the people he ran by, all he could do was ignore them. Once he arrived home, the adrenaline that carried him through the chaos quickly dissipated. Standing on his driveway was his wife, Mindy. Empty shells were scattered beneath her feet. Her grip on the shotgun was firm and steady. That was until she noticed Chris. The shotgun fell to the ground and they both ran towards each other. That was nearly a month ago. Mindy was now counting the remaining supplies they had in stock. She shook her head as she jotted down the disappointing results. Chris, on the other hand, reinforced the windows with the last remaining wooden boards. "We're low again," Mindy said. "What are we going to do? Sooner or later they're going to get in." "We can leave," Chris said. Mindy sighed, tossing the clipboard on the table. "Not this again. They're rumors. They're only going to get people killed. We're going to die either way. These rumors are the only bit of hope we have. I'm not planning on waiting around until one day a pest fortunate enough manages to slip by and slaughter us while we sleep. That's not our fate, Mindy. Think of our current predicament. The supplies we have on hand are only going to last us about 5 days at most. I've been out there searching. Each time I go, there's less and less. If we leave now while the sun is out, we'll have better odds of coming back in case the rumors were nothing more than spun tales of false hope." For the past several days Chris acted courageously. However, it was nothing more than a mask he wore to hide his true feelings. Seeing people you cared about mutate into nightmarish creatures has its toll. Now seeing said creatures tear apart the people you love, that's a different category altogether. "And what if these rumors are meant to thin the herd?" Mindy said. "It won't matter. Those who stay will fight for the scraps, and as soon as that's gone, they'll turn against each other. I would rather fight a pest than someone who can open a door and fire a gun," Chris said angrily. "Let's say we go, What if there's no room? What if a fight breaks loose and our saviors see that as a sign these people are wacky and uncontrollable? Let's leave them behind to get eaten by the creatures. I've seen how they kill. It's mindless and brutish. If anyone gets out of hand, I'll deal with it. We're leaving the safety of our home. Trust me, I don't want to leave either, but my half-assed defense aren't going to protect us forever. Mindy laughed. They are pretty shitty defenses, but they did what they were intended to do. So? Chris said, I don't know. I do know that staying isn't any better. Chris hugged Mindy. He pulled away and kissed her on the forehead. We're going to get out of here, I promise. She gazed into his eyes. What she saw was a man clinging onto whatever hope he could find. Okay. Let's go, she said. They began packing, preparing themselves for any encounter they might get along the way. Mindy tied her red velvet hair into a bun, wiping a smudge from her glasses. She then picked up her pistol. A Beretta 92F. And you wanted earrings, instead, Chris laughed, as he reloaded his shotgun, a Remington. I only got 12 rounds, hopefully I won't have to use them. Chris then hands Mindy a tactical vest. And yours? Mindy said. I won't need one, trust me. But I think we're ready. Stay close and move fast. We'll only fight if we can't avoid it. I love you. I love you too. Chris opened the front door. He scanned the area, making sure no pests were in sight. Once he deemed it safe, Mindy shortly exited the house. Stay close, Chris said as he led the way. The rumors that of Chris high-spirited are based on what a friend told him. One day as he was out gathering supplies, someone snuck behind him. Lay down your weapon on the shelf and don't think about doing anything stupid. The voice demanded. All right, just don't shoot. Chris placed his pistol on the shelf. Turn around slowly. As Chris turned around, the man pointing the gun laughed. I had you spooked there for a second, didn't I? Johnny? Chris said, I'm sorry, but the look on your face is priceless. They embraced in a hug, neither wanted to pull away. Look at you. The world is falling apart and you still manage to stay in shape. How have you been? You and Mindy, okay? We're surviving, but our supplies are running low. This is the third market I've been to that has just enough food to last us a couple more days. Those creatures are a huge fucking pain. No matter where I seem to step, they're always there. I hear you, man. I'm not sure if you know this, but before everything went to shit, I had a call come in over the radio. What's that school called? Oh yeah, the Mont's Elementary School for the Young and Impressionable. Apparently those rich snot-nosed kids all turned into weird-looking creatures. Oh shit, really? Yeah, Johnny said, his voice suddenly dropping. It seems like there's no point anymore to any of this except live another day if you're lucky. Do you think anyone is coming? Chris said. Well, I've heard rumors, I'm not sure if I believe them or not, but next Wednesday, boats are coming to the docks to save us from our execrable world, Johnny said. That's impossible. That's what I keep telling people. Apparently, this guy was sent here beforehand to locate any survivors. He claims that help is coming only for those who wait by the docks. Holy shit. Where is the guy now? He's dead, torn to shreds by the pests. That's what people are calling them. Name kinda fits, I guess. Anyways, this rumor has people feeling lucky. However, if it turns out to be complete bullshit, then we're all fucked. We're fucked either way, so it doesn't really matter. Chris thought about what Johnny told him. He honestly couldn't believe it. For the first time since the world ended, he allowed himself to have faith in something outside his control. Wednesday, by the docks, right? Yay, wait, you're not thinking of going there, are you? Chris held his tongue. Buddy, there is a high probability that those boats aren't even real. And if they are, Chris yelled. Johnny let out a deep sigh. I'm all for it, I really am. Let's say help is coming, and those boats are real. Making your way to the docks is a challenge in and of itself. If you manage to succeed, the real problem arises when you find yourself low on ammo. Because when it comes down to it, desperate people will do anything to survive. We make our bullets count then. How much ammo do you have in your pistol? Johnny laughed. It's empty, Chris, he said, waving his pistol in the air, before tossing it near the cash register. I ran out of ammo days ago. I just carry it for display. Then what? Because staying here isn't viable. I don't want to die. I don't want her to die. Let's just take this leap of faith, and maybe if we're lucky we land on one of the boats. And if we stumble and fall off it? You're a good swimmer, aren't you? You're insane, you know that. Guess I am. Chris snickered. I'll go, only because I'm not doing anything on Wednesday. How are you going to convince Mindy? Johnny asked. "I'll find a way." The streets were desolated, the only remnants were corpses from both humans and pests. However, there was a fresh body of a man who had been decapitated. A weird green goo covered the ground. Mindy's face changes into a blanched and toneless color. "What could have done that?" she said, now holding her shirt over her nose. "I don't know. Let's just focus on making it to the docks." Chris scanned the streets as they walked. Never has his grip on a weapon been so tight and firm. He feared that he might snap the weapon in two. They made it to a point where they could see the view of the ocean, and in the distance, a small speck could be seen. "I can't be," Mindy said, rushing to take a closer look. She reached into her backpack and retrieved a pair of binoculars. "It's real, oh my god. You were right, Chris. I'm so sorry," she cried. "We're going to get out, come on." They darted to the docks, coming to a gate that was already opened. Chris and Mindy looked at each other, unsure of what could have caused it. Their distress was shortly uplifted as they heard people talking just beyond the gate. Entering, they'd walked downstairs and saw a bunch of people standing around. "There's too many of us, damn it," said an old man. "They'll have room. No one is getting left behind," replied a woman. "Oh great, more people. We're at max capacity already. Sorry to say this, but you and your lady are going to have to mosey your way back from where you came." Chris placed his shotgun over his shoulder. "If you want us to go back the way we came, you're going to have to force us. No one has to fucking die." I used my binoculars to see how many boats are coming. It's only 3, and from what I can tell they're old. Most likely running on manpower, instead of an engine. Unfortunately they're fairly small, but I do believe that everyone here is going to survive, said a Hispanic male. "How about you count how many people are here, bozo? There's at least 40 of us, and I'm not confident that our rescuers are willing to come back for the ones they leave behind," said the old man. He then turned to talk to a woman. "See Janet, I told you people would come. Don't worry, you're going to be the first one on any of those boats. If these people think for a second about doing something foolish, they'll have a chat with Sandy." He held in his right hand a revolver. Presumably Sandy herself. "Calm down, Harold, we're all going to make it," Janet said. "Yeah, Harold, calm down before you give yourself an aneurysm," said a teenager. Harold boiled, and simmered in his anger. "Listen here, you damn nose-piercing bastard. You have no respect for me or yourself." "Yeah, whatever." The young man turned and sat down on the stairs. Chris walked over to him. "Hey, why is everyone waiting? The boats are nearly here." A few pests were spotted down by the docks. Someone volunteered to go down there and kill them. "Told us to stay put until he comes back. Actually, that's him right there." The young man pointed towards a blood-drenched Johnny who emerged from the stairs, wiping away pests' blood off his axe with his shirt. "All right, I think I got all of them," Johnny said. "Johnny?" Chris said, "Glad you both made it. Mindy, how have you been? Just because the world is brewing with pests doesn't mean you both can't visit me once in a while." She hugs Johnny. "It's nice seeing you," Mindy said. "Likewise. Now come on, let's get the fuck out of here." As they began to walk towards the rescued boats, they were stopped when they heard a woman yelling. "They're coming, a shitload," she cried. "And you led them here, you fucking fool. You've doomed us all," Harold said. "I'm sorry." "Hey, how far are they?" Johnny said. "They're not far behind." "Fuck, if we get crowded by these things the boats will never dock," Johnny said. He then glanced over at the boats. "Just when I thought I was going to get rescued. I'll try and stall them the best I can." "Are you fucking stupid? You'll die," Chris said. "We're all going to die if someone does halt their progression. You don't have to worry about me, just go." Johnny then darted up the stairs. Chris looks at Mindy and she immediately knows what he's thinking. "Don't," she whispered, "he won't be able to hold them." "Then I'm staying." "No, God no. I'm not going to let you. Johnny, and I can hold them." Others started to say their goodbyes, before racing up the stairs. "Look, they're going to help Johnny, you don't have to anymore." "I'm sorry, I really am," Chris said, placing his hands on Mindy's checks. He then pulled her in for a kiss. Chris took Mindy's pistol. "Please, don't," Mindy said, "I love you." Chris runs up the stairs, noticing only a handful of people were willing to stay and fight. "Chris, you dumb idiot. I told you I can take them. You can't just let me have this, can you?" "Always taking the glory," Johnny said. "Yeah, I'm a glory-taking asshole. Here, you're going to need this." Chris handed Johnny the pistol. "Thanks." The ground starts to rumble. Beyond a pile of cars, a sound begins to grow. Chris looked at Johnny. "We're going to die, you know that, right?" Johnny said, in a quivering voice. "Yeah, I know, but not her. She's going to live and that's all that matters to me." They smiled at each other, remembering all the things they'd done together. "You know, I never told you this, but you're one hell of a friend. You're also dumb as hell sometimes, and I wanna sock you right on your jaw," Johnny laughed, before continuing, "You're a great friend, and I want you to know that." A screeching came from behind the pile of cars. "See you on the other side, buddy." Small critters about the sizes of Doberman hounds rushed towards them. They crawled on the ground, with disfigured, multiple-jointed legs. With a thorax composed entirely of silver translucent skin, and a rigid stinger at the end of their abdomen. Those who stayed, gave a quick prayer, before unleashing a barrage of gunfire. "Don't let them get behind you!" screamed a man amidst the chaos. "Hold as long as you can, grant our family time, so that they may live," said another. The pests completely overwhelmed the group. Johnny unloaded a clip from his pistol, killing 3 pests. He threw the pistol at one of them when he ran out of ammo. He then began to use his axe. One of the pests launched directly at him. He quickly plunged the axe deep into its underbelly. Chris on the other hand reloaded his shotgun. He then took out 5 pests, before needing to reload again. Once he fully ran out of ammo, he started to use the shotgun as a bat. His heart dropped when he heard Johnny scream. He rushed to aid his friend, but Johnny was unfortunately overwhelmed. Chris was now the only one standing. His heart raced, his throat clogged, and his eyes widened as the pests surrounded him. He turned to face the boats. That's when his knees buckled. However, it wasn't because he felt his impending doom. Far from it. A smile radiated in the chaos. Despite being swarmed, he never once stopped smiling as the boats left. The Solar End. Part 3. Months have gone by and survivors have set up a safe haven deep inside a sewer system. The foul mixture of compounds that linger in the depths of any sewer system blemishes the survivors with an unpleasant smell they can't wash off. They've decided to set ablaze copious amounts of scented candles to try and combat the smell. It has not worked in their favor. The survivors have named the safe haven, the Dwell. It's a large open space with pillars stretching every 10 feet. In the center of all the pillars is a room that looks out from all sides. There are only 2 ways in and out of the Dwell. A circular gate made out of steel faces the front door of the center room. This gate leads directly to a flight of stairs ushering whoever takes it to a locked metal door. Directly opposite from the steel gate is another gate, this one leading to an intricate maze of tunnels that without the proper guidance would lead anyone astray. The aforementioned metal door can only be opened by Matthias Brown, a sanitary worker, who rushed to the sewers when the solar end occurred. He was followed by Julio Orozco. Julio, a well-known boxer, was celebrating his win when suddenly the club he was in turned into a massacre. Now he finds himself in a sewage refuge. On a weekly basis, Julio, accompanied by others, go and search for supplies. On their last run, they only managed to gather enough food for a couple of days. They also brought with them survivors. Unfortunately, during that run, 3 were killed by pests, who have been seen roaming the area more frequently. There is also a rumor going around about a pest, unlike any other. This was taking a toll on Julio. He was trying to sleep. He rested his head on his backpack, using his jacket as a blanket. He then placed down a candle next to him before he slumbered. The scent of rosemary invaded his nostrils, briefly enveloping him in a fusion of alleviation and solace. However, when he closes his eyes, the phantom screams of those he'd watched die rarely grant him a full night's rest. The nightmares scrape away at his thoughts. He was having one of these nightmares. He could feel the grasp of a large pest entangling him with its many disfigured hands. He then was awoken by laughter and splashes. "Danny, stop messing about and get back here," said a woman through gritted teeth. "Danny." Danny ran throughout the pillars, casually jumping on puddles of sewage waste. He then ran by Julio, accidentally bumping into his backpack. The woman narrowed her eyes, wielding fire inside of them. She ran and grabbed Danny, then Whisper yelled at him. "Stop, before you get us kicked out." She then looked at Julio, her voice softening. "I'm sorry, he's a bit enthusiastic for my liking. I'm Katrina, by the way," she said. "That's all right, this place could use someone with his enthusiasm." Katrina smiled. "I'm not too sure about that," she laughed, before continuing. "You look familiar, you wouldn't happen to be Julio Orozco?" Julio laughed. "Yeah, that's me. Are you a fan?" "Probably your biggest fan. Danny and I watched all your fights." She looked down at Danny, who was hugging her leg. "Danny, look who it is. Can you say hi?" The energetic and lively kid that ran wild moments before had been replaced with a sheepish boy. Now, he's all shy and quiet. Katrina laughed. "What are you doing here?" "Sorry, dumb question. I just can't believe I didn't recognize you." "Well, it's hard getting a haircut and a beard trim nowadays," Julio said. "The smell is rancid, isn't it? Do you and Danny need any candles?" "Yes, please. The smell is literally going to kill me." Julio hands 2 candles to Katrina. "One for you and one for Danny," he said. "You can just give us the one. Danny can't smell anything, which is a miracle." Danny then slips away from Katrina's grasp, resuming in his playful demeanor. "I should probably get him before he bothers anyone else. We wouldn't want to get voted off the sacred sewers." She walks away, grabbing her son by the hand. "Stop messing around, and sit down," she mutters, giving the person next to her a friendly smile. "Sorry kids, am I right?" Julio couldn't help but smile. He manages to fall back to sleep. Unfortunately, he's awakened once again. "Stay quiet," said a man with a raspy voice. "Do we really have to do this?" replied another man. His voice, although not as raspy as the man he spoke to, it still carried some rigidness to it. "Yes, now hurry up before someone sees us." The voices become inaudible as Julio sees them enter the back gate. Julio decides to get up and follows them. They travel further into the tunnels until they stop. One of the men is an older white male, with a short brown beard, and muscular build. He reaches behind a wall and retrieves a backpack. He then hands something to the other male. He was shorter than the first, with a potbelly and an underbite that constantly had him wiping away at his mouth. "All right, after this we're done," said the older of the two. Julio finally noticed what they had: dynamite? What are these 2 jackasses doing? Without thinking, Julio jumps into action. The short potbelly male turns, swinging at Julio. Julio weaves and throws a light jab, hitting his attacker straight in the nose. He tumbles back, landing on his ass. He turns to the other, and stops when a gun is aimed directly at his face. "Now, calm down there, Julio," said the older man. "What the fuck are doing?" Julio said, taking precautions. "If the pests ever find a way inside this shit-infested pool, then we're all as good as dead." "How many have you planted?" Julio said. "Enough to blow this place to kingdom come. Hopefully it can take out the big wiggly one." "The what?" Julio said. "Never mind. I'm not going to kill you. You ain't worth a bullet. Also, it's going to be hard having to explain why I had to kill you. It would be nice if you don't spread this information to others." "Why shouldn't I?" Julio said as the older man lowers the gun. "Because they'll never understand. They'll look at me and say I'm crazy. The truth of the matter is I might be the only sane person here. So don't go and throw a fit for something that will save you later on. I'm just looking out for everybody. When the time is right, I'll lead people out of here. These sewers may appear to be intricate, but thanks to Matias, I know where to go." "Matias? Why would he allow this?" Julio said. "He's afraid, like you and I." "You're fucking crazy," Julio said. "If that's another word for foresight, I'll take it. Name's Buck, by the way. That poor bastard you knocked to the ground is Abel. More like disable. Get up, you fool. He barely touched you." "I think he broke my nose," Abel said. "I'll patch you up when we get back. Right now let's just finish planting the remaining charges." Julio stood there dumbfounded. "Where did you even get dynamite from?" "Nonya." Julio's face puzzled, as Abel smirked then chuckled. "Nonya fucking business. If you're not planning on helping us with the charges, you can fucking leave." Julio scoffed. "Asshole," he thought as he turned around. He stayed awake the whole night, thinking about if he should or shouldn't tell the others. He let out a heavy sigh when he realized what he was going to do. "Fuck," he whispered. A few days have gone by and the supplies they'd gathered on their previous run were nearly gone. Julio glanced over at Katrina, who rubbed the back of Danny's head. "Hi, Katrina, how are you guys doing today?" Julio said. Katrina lifted her head, lazily, and said in a broken voice, "We're fine." Danny raised his head. His hair was a complete mess, his eyes tired and swollen. He clutched his stomach before drinking what little water he and Katrina had. "I'm hungry," Danny said weakly. "I know, sweetie, I am too. But we're going to have to wait until they go on their next supply run." She turned to Julio and asked, "You wouldn't happen to know when that's going to be?" "Soon, I believe. I know we're running on limited fuel, so take this." Julio retrieved 2 energy bars from inside his backpack. "No, we can't. I insist. Besides, what kind of man lets a mother and her child go hungry?" "Thank you. What do we say, Danny?" Katrina said. "Thank you," Danny said. "My pleasure. I'm going to have a chat with Matias, I'll check back with you guys." Julio went to Matias, who was in the middle room with Buck and Abel. Julio cracked open the door and listened to their conversation. "We need to go topside, Matias," Buck said. "I know what we need to do. It's not that simple. The pests are roaming the area more often," Matias said. "And some of us haven't eaten in the past 2 days," Buck yelled. "I'm not saying we won't go, I'm simply saying that we wait. Until things die down. The pests will eventually forget about us and roam further away." Buck laughed. "That's your great plan? To wait? Now, that is a brilliant fucking plan. How long did it take you to formulate such an idea?" Matias said nothing, he simply stared blankly at Buck. "Trust me when I tell you that the moment they come down here is the moment shit hits the fan. It won't ever come to that, and besides you have a backup plan, don't you? In case anything gets in," Matias said. "It's a flawless plan, unless the big wiggle one comes. Not sure if the explosives can even kill it. Listen, we're all hungry, okay? I know the last supply run didn't exactly reap any rewards, beside more mouths to feed. All I'm saying is that another supply run couldn't hurt." "No one's willing to go," Matias said. "I'll go," Julio said, entering the room. "What? Don't be stupid. I'm fucking starving, Matias. I'll go with Buck, and whatever we find, we'll bring back." No, Matias was interrupted when Buck pushed him aside in order to come face to face with Julio. "Let's go topside," Buck said with a grin on his face. Julio and Buck made their way to the front gate. From there they walked towards the flight of stairs, stopping only when they reached the metal door. Matias unlocked the door, then handed Julio and Buck 2 backpacks. He also gave Julio a bat while Buck took out his pistol. Julio stepped outside and turned to see Buck embrace Abel in a hug. "I'll be back, and if I'm not, then it's up to you to be the hero they didn't know they needed." Abel smiled. Buck then turned to face Julio. "Alright, Boxer, let's bring back some fucking supplies." The world presented itself in a ruined state, demonstrating that humanity will, to carry on, may just be a fruitless attempt to salvage what cannot be restored. Buildings started to become seized by grass and vines. Cars littered the streets. Upon passing them, Julio noticed dried-up blood, as well as bullet casings scattered throughout the ground. Buck halted their progress when they reached a bridge. "The world may have gone to shit, but at least it gave us a cool-looking view." The sun hadn't risen and the sky was filled with colors that stretched beyond what was normal. "My daughter would have loved to witness such a view. She studied the northern lights. Their colors are similar to what we're seeing now, except on a larger scale. From what I remember her telling me, their colors are usually green and blue, sometimes a dash of purple. But these are different. I see red, orange, pink, and hazel." "Where's your daughter now?" Julio asked. "She's 6 feet under. She died before all this started. I'm actually thankful she died. I don't want to imagine what I would have done if she morphed into a pest." Julio looked up at the colorful view. "We should get going," Buck said, leading the way. They'd traveled further in silence, before reaching a market. "Let's hope it's not looted," Julio said. Buck took out a second pistol, handing it to Julio. "You're just giving this to me now? What if we were attacked while we came here?" Julio said. "We weren't, and you had a bat to defend yourself with." "You're an asshole," Julio said. "That, I am," Buck replied. Entering the market, they had their guns ready, both diverted from each other to cover more ground. Julio managed to find a few cans. Stuffing them into his backpack, he continued in his search. Passing by the aisles, he noticed blood, rotten food, a few humans, and pests' corpses. Suddenly a noise came from the back of the market. Julio aimed his pistol at the door that led to the back. A hand then wrapped around his mouth. "We need to leave now," Buck whispered. "It's here. The big wiggly one." Almost on cue, something burst through the doors and quickly scattered through the market. It made a clicking sound as it traveled. "We move slowly and quickly, okay," Buck said, leading Julio outside. His face flustered with anger when he noticed a pest standing near their exit. The pest that stood before them was an obscenity to glance at. It was the size of a large moose. Its torso subdivided, the only semblance of it ever being a human. Its top half still possessed some human features, like skin and hair. However, its face had been engulfed by multiple eyes. It bellowed as it walked, with bent legs. "We're turning back, follow me," Buck said, turning. His eyes sunk beneath his skull. "Fuck." Julio turned, seeing something large wiggle its way behind them. "We don't have the firepower to kill that thing. We have to distract the one in front of us." Buck retrieves a can from his backpack. "Okay, Get ready to run. Now. Buck threw the can, grabbing the attention of the pest. It scattered towards the sound with remarkable speed. Buck grinned, as they made it out. They didn't stop running until they were halfway to the sewers. "We're alive," Julio said, catching his breath. "Damn right we are. These pests may think they have us on the ropes," but Buck suddenly was attacked by a pest. "Get it off me," he yelled. Julio was in the midst of shooting until he heard something scraping against the car they'd recently passed. He aimed his pistol to the side, firing a shot just as a pest emerged. He sidesteps, causing the pest to fall on the ground. It quickly stands up, then propels itself forward. Julio, quick on his feet, enters through an abandoned car. He attempts to exit from the other side, but his leg is pulled by tendrils coming from the pest's mouth. He fired 3 shots, untangling himself from its grasp. Once he comes out from the other side, he fires at the pests, emptying out the clip. The pest topples over. He then looks at Buck. "Oh, shit." Julio stammers. Buck managed to kill the pest that tackled him, but was unfortunately badly wounded. His left hand was gone, his legs were crushed and his chest was completely exposed. "I'm taking you back, I don't know how, but I'll find a way." Something large began to approach them, the ground rumbled, causing the street lights to fall. With what little strength Buck still had, he managed to say, "Run." Julio took Buck's pistol and backpack. When he made it to the metal door, he pounded his fist against it. "Open up," he yelled. Abel, open the door, his face puzzled. "Where's Buck?" "I think the big wiggle one got him." Abel's face completely changed from sadness to agony. "He was a good man, I can attest to that. We should get down, before something comes in," Abel said, wiping away at his mouth. "How much food were you able to get?" Abel said. "Hopefully enough," Julio said. Once he grouped up with the others, Julio dropped the backpacks. Katrina and Danny spotted and approached him. "You're okay," Katrina said as others started to gather around Julio. "Did you bring food?" "Yes." Matias then walks in front of everyone. "Where's Buck?" "He's dead," Julio replied. Matias lets out a sigh. "Rest his soul, at least you guys managed to bring back food. May I?" Matias grabbed one of the backpacks, opening it. "It'll be enough." He then turned to the crowd. "Please, give me some time so that I may come up with an idea on how to handle this situation." Matias continued to talk, but something grabbed Julio's attention. In the distance, he could make out the sounds of something hitting the water. Looking towards the gate he came from, a rancid smell invaded his nose. His eyes then widened when something burst through the gate. A gigantic pest resembling a centipede crawled inside, wrapping around a single pillar. Its crystal red beady eyes scanned the area, as its 2 engulfed human hands dangled from underneath its stomach. Its skin was an amalgamation of dirt, grass, and algae. The pest opened its mouth, revealing an array of sharp dagger-like teeth. With its mouth opened, it let out fumes of green gas. As it moved its head from side to side, its drool splattered onto the ground, causing an acidic reaction. Someone foolishly attempted to sneak past the monstrosity that stood before the resident of the dwell. He ended up stepping on one of the various puddles of sewage waste. Its giant head snapped and it then propelled forwards, crashing into the pillars, toppling them over. Everyone ran. Some tried to hide in the middle room, others tried to leave. Those who managed to leave were later heard screaming, as about a dozen winged pests flew out from the tunnel. The winged pests were covered entirely with tiny gray bristly hairs. They flew around the pillars, pouncing on anyone they could get. Matias was pinned to the ground, as one of the winged pests clasped onto his back with its serrated talons. It was then seen burrowing inside him. Matias jerked as a cloud of red dust spewed from the pest's back. "The backpacks," Katrina said. Julio ran for them, as one of the winged pests nosedived straight at him. He fires, clipping its wing, sending it crashing next to him. He grabbed the backpacks, then ran to the front gate where Katrina and Danny were waiting. Everyone was seen running in different directions. Julio almost joined them but was stopped when Abel tugged at his shirt. This way, Abel followed white marks that were painted on the tunnels. "We're almost there," he said. On their last turn, they'd reached a large open space with a ladder that led up to the surface. However, that's not what Julio spotted, not at first. What caught his gaze was the detonator next to the ladder. He followed the wire that led to a massive cluster of dynamite. "How did you guys get this?" Julio said. "Just climb the ladder, it'll lead you all outside. I'm going to stay and blow this elder centipede to the sky. It killed Buck, and I'll be a damn fool if I don't avenge him somehow. Now go." "Get out of here," before a winged pest attached itself to Abel's back and then started to burrow inside of him. His mouth widened, but he was unable to scream. He fell to the ground as the blood cloud puffed into the air. "Fucking hell," Julio said, rushing towards Abel. He killed the pest, but Abel was already dead. "Start climbing, now," he said, handing Katrina one of the backpacks. "I'll be right behind you." Katrina and Danny made it to the top. Julio was nearly there. "Watch out," Katrina shouted. The giant pests fired an acid projectile, hitting the top of the ladder. "No," Julio said, falling to the ground. As he turned, he saw the gigantic pest towering over him. An imposing monstrosity that shouldn't exist. It opened its mouth. Its acidic drool splashed onto the ground. Julio took a deep breath, holding it for as long as he could. His hands shook and his legs wobbled. He slowly started to shimmy to the side. Attempted to make as little movement as possible. A calm feeling swept over him as his hand touched the detonator. He then smiled. Katrina and Danny were safely out of the blast zone. They rested near some trees. The explosive managed to cave in an entire block. "Mom," Danny said, "we're okay, Danny. We're going to be okay." She clutched his hand, wiping away tears. "Let's go find somewhere safe to rest." The Solar End. Part 4. Taza Brooks was given numerous warnings about the perils of venturing beyond the walls that kept her safe. However, she needed to go beyond them. She snuck out one day, via a secret entrance she had found a few days ago. She was accompanied by her two friends. Mitchell Martin, a tall, brawny, skull-hardened, 21-year-old male. Along with Charlie Locke, a petite, redhead who turned 20 last week. They walked for a time, until they reached a house. The emerald paint that once coated the house, slowly chipped away by the slightest breeze. Upon entering, Taza felt the weight on her shoulders start to dissipate. She walked around, listening attentively as though the house had something to say. She stops when she reaches a pink door. Opening the door, she holds her breath, her hand tightens under the frozen touch of the doorknob. Mitchell and Chloe both pre-aimed at the door, in case anything unnatural lurked inside. Taza's heart belabors as the door widens, her breathing had now come to a complete stop. Once inside she smiles, even after all these years the room hadn't faltered to lose its tone. The memories started to come back and Taza could almost say, without a doubt, "It's good to be home." A threatening smile began to form. She wholeheartedly believed that once she entered this room, the fractures in her heart would splinter, causing her to become a complete mess. However, the opposite happened. She smiled with teary eyes and giggled. She stood tall, head held high above her shoulders, and she smiled like she's never smiled before. "It's exactly as I remember it," Taza said, laying on the bed, releasing a dust cloud into the room. "I can't believe I almost forgot what it looked like," she said. Charlie laid next to her. "This room is bigger than the ones we have on base." Taza laughed, wiping away tears. "It's definitely bigger and cozier." Chloe stood upright, then asked, "Is this her room?" Taza smiled, then nodded. "It's really pretty," Chloe said. "You know, it's funny, she hated this room. It's the smallest one in the house, and according to her she would always see flies buzzing around. She wanted my room, but I claimed it before her. She was so angry that she ignored me for half a day. The reason I say that is because halfway through the day she got hungry. I was the only one that could drive, so we ended up eating pizza." "What was her name?" Chloe said. "Caria," Taza said. "What a beautiful name. How long did you guys live here for?" Chloe asked. "We constantly moved from place to place, because of our dad. This was the only house we stayed in the longest, almost a year. Everything seemed to be going swell, until the world decided to fall apart." Taza rose from the bed. "We should probably get back to base before they realize we're gone," she said. Before she left the room, she looked underneath the bed and retrieved a small egg-shaped box with flowers drawn all over it. "What's that?" Chloe said. "A distant memory," Taza said, stuffing the egg-shaped box inside her backpack. "Hey, where's Mitchell?" she said. "He's probably downstairs." Chloe was interrupted when Mitchell yelped. They spirited downstairs only to see Mitchell clutching his hand. "What happened?" Charlie said. "It bit me," Mitchell yelled. "It fucking bit me." "What bit you?" Chloe said. "I don't know, it happened so fast. I only got a glimpse of it." "Let me see your hand," Chloe said, yanking his hand. She noticed 2 puncture marks on his palm. "Unfortunately you're going to live." Mitchell grimaced. "Does it hurt?" Taza said, "No. I was more surprised than hurt. It caught me off guard, that's all. I'm sorry I scared you guys." "What did it look like?" Chloe said, "I like a small dog covered with blisters." "That's it?" Chloe said, "Yeah, that's it. What did you expect?" "I don't know. I heard rumors of some of them being different from the ones we usually see." "Be hopeful that it stays that way," Mitchell said. "We really should get going," Daisy said. "Okay, hopefully it's a clear path back to base," Mitchell said. As they left the house, Taza said her farewell and closed the front door. Walking back, they made sure they had their guns at the ready. Walking back to base, Chloe couldn't help but notice something odd about Mitchell. "Are you sure it doesn't hurt?" "No," Mitchell groaned. "Really? Because you've been scratching away at your palm for the past 5 minutes. It just itches. That's all." "We'll get a nurse to take a look at it," Daisy said, seeing Mitchell forcefully scratch away at his palm. "Stop scratching it, you idiot, you're making it worse," she said. "Well, I'm sorry, but it's bothering me. We're not too far from base. Just stop scratching it, okay? Take this." Taza hands Mitchell a pair of gloves. She then looked over at Chloe. "Do you think we'll get in trouble for sneaking out?" "We're not going to get in trouble." "Well, maybe a little, but what are they going to do? Kick us out? Banish us to the Badlands? They probably haven't even realized we've left, and if we do get kicked out, we can cozy up with the sewer people. Didn't they all die?" Mitchell said, as he struggled to put on the gloves. "I'm sure they're all fine," Chloe said. "We're here," Taza said, leading her friends towards a wall. There was a vacant section of the wall missing. Taza discovered this a while back and has hidden it from the attention of the guards as well as the general. She concealed the entrance by using snap breaches. She enters, lowering her voice. "All right, stay quiet," she said. Suddenly she was swarmed by blinding lights. A pair of hands then wrapped around her shoulders. Taza quickly found herself pinned to the ground. She struggled to break free. "What the hell were you guys thinking?" Taza heard footsteps approaching her. She looked up to see a man in his late 50s standing in front of her. Gray-haired, with a cigarette in one hand and with the other he held a lantern. He spoke in a stentorian voice that sent shivers down Taza's back. "You guys could have died," said the general. "The only ones to blame would have been yourselves." "We're fine," Taza replied. The general couldn't help but chuckle. "Let them up," he said, taking another swig from his cigarette. "That entrance you came from, how long has that been there?" No one dared to answer. "When I ask a question, I deserve a fucking answer." "A week," Taza said. "A week? Can you comprehend what would have happened if a pest found that entrance? Hundreds of lives would have been at risk." The general turned his attention to a soldier. "Seal the entrance, and I want 2 guards stationed here at all times." He then examined Mitchell, who was trying his dandiest not to scratch away at his palm. He bit down at his tongue and diverted his gaze from the general. "What the hell is wrong with you?" the general said. "Nothing, sir. Just hurt my hand, that's all." "Make your way to the infirmary." "I don't think that will be necessary." Mitchell replied, "I don't care, it's procedure for anyone who gets hurt." Mitchell sighed and walked past him, heading towards the infirmary. "I want both of you in my office now." The amount of candles scattered around his officer is what many may deem a safety hazard. Sitting down on his chair, he placed his cigarette on a tray. The smoke billowed in the air as he spoke. "What were you guys thinking? Going beyond the walls, especially at night? I am trying my best to keep everyone in this facility safe, that includes both of you." He paused, letting out a sigh before continuing. "I know where you went, Daisa. As angry as I am, it's reasonably understandable why you decide to go. I miss her too. I told you, I would have taken you there when the time was right. The right time is never going to come." Daisa finally spoke, allowing her voice to be heard. "You've been saying that shit for so fucking long. I was tired of waiting for something I knew you were never going to do." "It's not that easy, Daisa." "It's not?" Taza laughed in mockery. "It seemed pretty easy to me. You're always going on about how pests are dangerous and roaming the area constantly. Guess what, Dad? We didn't spot any pests. Not a single one. We came back just fine." "And, Mitchell?" "All he got was a stretch, nothing more." "Should I leave?" Chloe said. "Yes." "No," Taza yelled. "For God's sakes, Taza. It's a fucking miracle you came back. But hey, you guys didn't run into a pests. What if you ran into another group of survivors? What do you think they would have done? Helped you? Provide food and shelter for you? No, no, no. They would either kill you or make a slave out of you." The general, clearly heated, attempted to calm the flames brewing inside of him. He took a deep breath before speaking again. "I don't want to be seen as the bad guy, It brings me displeasure in saying this, however it must be said as well as done. Starting tomorrow, all three of you will have an escort at all times. What? Taza said, any attempt in abandoning your escort will result in immediate confinement. I can't lose you too, Taza. I just can't. If this facility has to be your dungeon, then goddamn it will be. I just wanted to say goodbye, Taza said. She then rose from her chair and retrieved the egg-shaped box, placing it on her dad's desk. His eyes widened, as his lips began to tremble. Here's a memento to remind you of her. Wrapping his hands around the egg-shaped box, he opened it, revealing a ballerina that could no longer dance. However, the general could still imagine the tone it used to play. Tease walked off with Chloe following right behind her. Chloe was about to talk, but Taza cut her off before she could say a single word. Let's go check on Mitchell, see how he's doing, Taza said. Okay. Chloe replied. They both reached the infirmary. Stepping inside, they were unable to spot Mitchell. A nurse walked by them and Chloe stopped her. Hey, have you seen Mitchell? He was ordered to come down here. The nurse, an older lady, fixed her glasses while checking her clipboard. Her finger scolded down. Sorry dear, he never came, she said. That's okay, he probably went to his room, guaranteed that's where we'll find him, Chloe said. Leaving the infirmary, they went to his room. Upon entering the building, they smelled something rancid, a combination of rotten eggs and spoiled milk. The further they entered, the stronger the smell. It's coming from his room, Chloe said. Mitchell's door was opened. They entered his room, finding it a complete mess. Chloe spotted something near his bed. Walking towards it, she was taken aback. A gush of blood stained the floor. Chloe could see files hovering over it. What the hell happened? She said. Just then a faint buzzing sound could be heard from outside Mitchell's room. Stepping out, they spotted files coming from around a corner. What the hell? Taza said, as someone turned the corner. Is that Mitchell? Chloe said. Hell help me. Mitchell could barely be heard due to the orchestra of loud unendurable buzzing. He stretched away at his skin that was now partially covered in golf-sized vesicles that would pop randomly, realizing a bright orange liquid as well as tiny flies that swarm around him. Mitchell collapsed to the ground, attempting to catch himself with his hands. They'd fractured under his weight and slowly reconfigured into daggers. His screams were muffled by the complete array of constant buzzing the files produced. He attempted to wipe them off his body, but only caused more of the vesicles to pop. Kill me, Mitchell stammered out, before suddenly losing the ability to speak. All that came out of his mouth were muffled cries. He then forcefully pounded his head against the floor, until his body gave way to the swarm. He didn't move for several seconds. Chloe. We need to. Mitchell's body jerked, it then rose, standing still. Some of the files started venturing on their own. One in particular landed on Chloe's arm. She examined it, a tiny fly with a set of 4 wings and 8 bushy legs, its eyes pissed yellow. Chloe felt a sting on his arm. She yelped and instinctively crushed the fly. Mitchell's head jerked upwards. His eyes were gone, and yet he knew exactly where they stood. He let loose a buzzing howl as a swarm rushed Taza and Chloe. Run, Taza said. With each step they took, the buzzing slowly became louder, the air felt misty and the rancid odor flared up their nostrils. The flies caught up with Chloe, catching her in a storm. Taza attempted to get her out, but the tiny flies bit her with such force that it felt like 1,000 little cuts. Chloe screamed, swatting the air. Taza had to think of something fast. She looked around for anything that could aid her. That's when she spotted it. A fire extinguisher. Grabbing it, she aimed at the storm and propelled its wintry foam. The flies fell to the ground. She then dropped the fire extinguisher, and helped Chloe get off from the ground. Opening the first door she saw, she entered, then locked it behind her. Oh, Chloe. Fuck. The swarm left Chloe looking as if she aged 100 years in the matter of a few seconds. Her brittle, dried-up skin made her appear as if she was a corpse from The Walking Dead. She tried talking, but words were unable to form. Oh, God. Chloe, Taza cried, grabbing a hold of her friend's hand. Chloe weakly attempted to lift her free hand up to her own face. Her joints popped, as the skin on her arm began to peel off. No. Chloe, please don't die. Taza had begun to sob. Please. In the distance, gunshots could be heard as well as screams. The room Taza hid in became showered in red lights. Chloe gasped for air, until she simply could not perform that action anymore. Dad, Taza whispered. She pulled herself together the best she could and went outside. But not before leaving with the fire extinguisher. Once outside, she notices bodies similar to Chloe scatter throughout the ground. She jumped when she heard gunshots in the direction of her dad's office. She sprinted towards the gunshots. Once she made it, she saw soldiers laying on the ground. The entrance to the building had flies hovering around it. She used the fire extinguisher to kill them, before walking inside. She checked each room, while making her way up to her dad's office. Upon turning a corner she saw a small barking at something inside a room. Flies immediately swarmed the poor dog. Taza took in a deep soulful breath. Spray until it's fucking dead. She thought. She psyched herself up. You got this. Before she could rush in, a hand wrapped around her mouth, pulling her back. What are you doing? You need to get out of here, the general said. Dad, Taza cried, hugging him. It's Mitchell, that thing is Mitchell. It's okay, Taza, it's going to be okay. I can't kill it while it's been swarmed. I got bit a few times. Hurts like fucking hell. Try this. She handed him the fire extinguisher. It'll work against him. He kissed Taza on the forehead, holstering his pistol on his side. Get going, I can't kill that thing and protect you at the same time. Taza attempted to speak, but was cut off from doing so. Please, Taza. I can't lose you. I've lost so much, I can't afford to lose you. A tear ran down his cheek. Okay, Taza said. I love you. Taza smiled. Now go. Get as far away as you can. Taza ran, as the general narrowed his eyes at the pest. All right, asshole. The general turned the corner. The pest stood over the poor dog, before it shot its head towards the general and unleashed a large swarm in his direction. He sprayed the fire extinguisher at the swarm, crushing the flies that fell on the ground with his boots. As he closed the gap between him and the pest, the fire extinguisher had nothing left to spray. Oh, fuck, he said. The pest tilted its head, then moved closer to the general. He walked backwards, nearly tripping over his own feet. The pest looked like it was going to pounce. Before it had the opportunity, it was sprayed with more carbon dioxide. It covered its face with its hand. As Taza unloaded on the pest, she managed to get it to the ground. It slashed aimlessly at Taza. The general unholstered his pistol, firing several shots at its head. The vesicles around its body popped, as the flies dropped to the ground. The general managed to get close enough and fired a bullet straight into its head. The pest slumped against a wall, unmoving. It's dead, he said. Taza embraced her dad in a hug. I'm sorry, I had to come back. If that thing killed you, It's okay. I'm okay. It's dead now. Before walking out of the building, the general went into his office to retrieve the egg-shaped box. Once outside they sat, gazing up at the colorfully sky. Taza still held the fire extinguisher as a precaution. Is everyone dead? She said. I think so. The general replied. Just then one of the countless bodies that laid in front of them began to jitter. A buzzing pandemonium started to grow in volume. The general sighed, before opening the egg-shaped box. Taza snuggled underneath his arm, letting go of the fire extinguisher. We're coming, Carria. We're coming to see you real soon, said the general. The Solar End. Part 5. A woman in her late 20s bolted through the vacant streets of a neighborhood she once knew. She constantly glanced behind her. Doing so, erupted a feeling of despair. Monsters chased after her and were quickly closing the distance between them. Although she was further ahead, she kept stopping to see if any of building had open doors. So far they were all locked. A cramp started to form on her side, slowing her down just a bit. Her tongue dried, as the taste of blood filled her mouth. She wanted to rest, but doing so would result in the monsters catching up to her. She continued to run, despite her leg becoming numb. She reached a building and cried tears of joy when she noticed a small enough gap that she could fit through. She crawled inside, stepping over glass shards. Once inside she attempted to open any door, however, she found them all to be locked. She made it to the end, only to hear a noise coming from behind the broken door she entered from. She bolted up the stairs at the end of the corridor. The sound of multiple footsteps encroaching behind her made her heart skip a beat. The entrance to the second floor was blocked, as well as the third. Fuck, she whispered. She heard the monsters approaching. The only weapon she had was a broom she fashioned into a spear. The probability of surviving what ascended up those stairs was slim to none. The hairs on the back of her neck rose, as her grip on the broom spear tightened. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots rang underneath the stairs, the sound lingering in the woman's mind. She hears footsteps approaching her and sees a man appear from the corner of the stairs. Are you okay? He said in a broken voice. Yes. Thank you. The woman said. What's your name? He said Ariana, She wiped away tears as she spoke. "You're safe," he said.
Thank you. What's your name?"
"Kane," he said, a bit too harshly. "Is it just you? Do you have people with you?" he said.
"No, it's just me."
"Are you hurt?"
"No."
"Well, all right then." Kane noticed her eyes fixated on the gun he held. He tucks it away, showing Ariana his free hands. "I won't hurt you, follow me, and I'll lead you outside. I can show you a route they don't patrol." Kane descended the stairs, as Ariana followed behind him. She still had in her clutches the broom spear. "Just don't stab me with that thing, okay?" On the second floor, she noticed the monsters that had been chasing her all night, lying face flat on the ground. These fucking psychotic gangsters, they act like monsters. They usually don't come this far, but when they do, I handle them the way I see fit. "They've caused a lot of problems for me already," Kane said. He spat one of their bodies as he passed by them.
"Why are they like this?"
Ariana said. "Hell if I know. They started showing up a few months ago. Caused a lot of problems for the people who used to live here." "Used? Are you here by yourself?" Ariana asked. "Just me and my daughter." He paused as if he had made a mistake. "My daughter," he said, coldly. "Just you and her?" Ariana said. "That's correct." As they turned the corner to the first floor, Kane unholstered his pistol. "Fuck." Ariana looked over his shoulder, spotting more thugs entering the building. Kane looked visibly upset, tapping the gun against his forehead. "Fuck. Follow me." Next to the stairs was a door that Kane unlocked. Ariana hadn't noticed it when she first ran up the stairs. "Come on, I don't know how many of these fucktards have already made their way inside. I don't have the ammo to fight them. Listen, I know it's a bit dark down there, but it beats being killed or captured by these guys." Ariana was reluctant at first, and her grip on the broom spear tightened. "My daughter is down there. I wouldn't let you go there if I knew you could harm her. Now hurry up." Ariana descended the stairs. It was dark. She nearly slipped on something that wetted the ground. The only source of light was a single candle in the back of the basement. Ariana drops her backpack and retrieves a crank flashlight. Twisting the lever, a light starts to appear. She uses it to look around, and immediately she drops it. Her stomach folds into itself, and before she could pick up her weapon, her vision gets blurry as something solid hits the back of her head. When she wakes up, her arms are tied and her weapon is nowhere to be found. "Hey!" She jumps, spotting Kane laying down near the stairs. "I'm sorry. I panicked. I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. The basement was now partially light, revealing all the disturbing things that were obscured by the dark. In front of Kane was a pool of blood, and next to him was a half-eaten body. He barely gave it no mind, as if it wasn't there at all. "I know how this looks like, Ariana. I'm not a cannibal, I'm just going to get that out of the way. I have plenty of food for myself." Ariana's eyes bounced all over the place. Wherever her eyes seemed to linger, she could only see human remains. "Oh God," she said. That's when she saw it. A stream of blood comes from a single direction. Her eyes followed the bloodstream. In front of her is a cage door that the light could not reach, leaving Ariana's imagination to run wild as to what could be lurking inside. She then fully grasped what he'd just told her. "What do you mean by that?" "By what?" Kane replied. "You said, I have plenty of food for myself. What do you mean by that?" Kane chuckled, running his hands through his hair, before standing up. "We've never been lucky, her and I. The predicaments we'd face were often challenging. At times I was uncertain if we were going to survive. That was all before the solar end, or whatever the hell people are calling the event. She's never done anything wrong in her life. I ingrained into her that kind acts, even the ones that go unnoticed, will always be repaid in full. She was a good kid. She didn't deserve what she got in return." Kane paused, wiping away tears, before continuing. "She was destined for great things, not this ghastly and repellent excuse for an existence. She was meant to change the world, and instead the world changed her." He started to sob, before composing himself. "Now, I've been told she's no longer herself. I have attempted to dispose of her, but I cannot find it in my heart to do something so malice." "So you feed people to her?" Ariana yelled, her face sunk as her outburst only caused Kane to get angry. "I only feed her the cruel bastards who think they own this world. Like those psychotic fucks." He started to laugh. "You want to know what happened to the tenants that used to live here? They fucking died, because some adolescent limp dick teen decides to join them. The idiot led them here hoping that they would save us. They ended up killing him in front of his own mother. Shortly after that they went floor to floor, room to room, killing whoever the hell they found. I hide in my room. At the time, I was in the process of building this place, it was all but set up. The only problem I faced was finding a feasible way of transporting Alice without alarming the tenants. I kept Alice in her room. I knew that if I died, they would have likely killed her. So I freed her momentarily. She killed all the gangsters along with some tenants. I managed to lure her down here and trapped her in that cage. The cage had 2 layers, the second being metal and the first being steel. However, there were noticeable dents on the metal layer. It had taken quite a beating over the past months and the likelihood of Alice breaking through the second layer was almost a given. "It's still wrong," Ariana said with a quivering voice. "I know. But what am I supposed to do? She's the only thing keeping me from offing myself. I understand that everyone has lost someone important to them." Kane's voice fell and he was unable to pick it up. "She's all I fucking have, she's my little girl." He started to sob, "And I fucking failed her," he shouted. At that moment the cage rattled and shook. Alice was now tugging against the metal layer. Ariana managed to catch a glimpse of tiny lobster-sized hands with serrated edges. Her heart shattered as the first lane of defense was no longer standing. She looked over at Kane, whose face still held the indifferent expression it had since the moment she woke up. Alice began ramming against the steel fence. "Ariana," Kane said, walking towards her. "She's hungry." "No, please. You can't do this." Kane takes out a pocket knife. "Please, don't." He turns her over and unties her. Ariana's face is puzzled as Kane steps aside, allowing her to walk past him. "Your stuff is upstairs, the thugs left a while ago and I provided you with some food and my personal map." Ariana stared blankly at Kane. "I don't have what it takes to kill her. I only see my daughter, and right now all I want to do is hug her." Ariana walks up the stairs, surprised as to what was happening. "Hey," Kane said. "Lock the door on your way out." She did just that, hearing a faint sob coming from the other side of the door as she left. The Solar End Part 6. Sparks could be seen as the 2 rocks clashed together. A small fire caught onto the pile of wood Keith had gathered. He made it appear as if it were easy, as if he could do it in his sleep. Perhaps he could. The fire, although barely lit, allowed the group surrounding it a moment to bathe in the resonating crackle and warmth it provided. The wind howled with a sharp breeze, leaving the group red-faced. A tall, burly black male named Majur sipped from his flask, leaving just enough for the next appointed stop. "Where do you learn to make a fire?" Majur said, his voice still stinging from the alcohol he drank. "I was a scout leader." Keith replied. "How was it?" Majur said. Just moments before the fire was made, they had been shivering, fidgeting with their clothes. The wind was biting with its sharp breeze, but now they were looking up at the sky, seeing the remnants of the calamity. A tall, burly black male named Majur sipped from his flask, leaving just enough for the next appointed stop. "Where do you learn to make a fire?" Majur said, his voice still stinging from the alcohol he drank. "I was a scout leader." Keith replied. "How was it?" Majur said. "It wasn't like joining the army or anything, but I'll tell you this, those kids can be monsters." Majur laughed, placing his flask into his coat pocket. "It's getting colder, when are we going to reach some warm place?" Majur said through chattering teeth. I don't know," Keith said. "Hopefully soon." No matter how far they traveled, the pests were constantly present. Keith grew anxious over time. He was declared the leader of the group, although by default. The position yielded no benefits, only a copious amount of stress. He took out a map from his backpack. "We're far away from the city, nothing but woods for miles. I suggest we keep moving, maybe we can find a cave or something." After a few minutes passed, Keith gave the order to move. He allowed the group enough time to pack their belongings. Once ready, he doused the fire, then led them through the forest. Leaves and branches broke behind their feet, rattled them. What if the pests were near? What if they heard it? Thankfully that wasn't the case. However, the emergence that lingered in their minds, constructed ideas and thoughts that tormented them. Traveling through the forest surely wasn't the fastest way to get from one point to another. Then again, where did they plan on going? The roads fester with pests like an untreated wound. Keith read that map as the group followed behind him. "Hey, Vanessa," Majur said. Vanessa looked up and turned her head around. Majur handed her 2 candy bars. "Thanks," she said, before handing one to a little girl beside her. "Kaylin?" The little girl looks at Vanessa, shivering while holding her stuffed bear. "Yeah," she said in a shallow voice. "This is for you. Save it for later in case you get hungry." Vanessa noticed her shivering against the wind's assault and offered to hand the little girl her jacket.
No, I don't. Don't be silly, you need it more than me, Vanessa said. Hey, scout leader. It's getting colder. Really, I hadn't noticed, Keith chuckled. We'll get there when we get there, okay? It shouldn't be. He stopped himself, along with the group. A parking lot? He said, we're miles away from the nearest city. 3 cars were stationed in the parking lot. A cyan SUV with its windows smashed, and tires sunk into the ground, one silver minivan with its windows and tires intact. However, the hood of the minivan was caved in. The last car was a piss-brown RV. The RV looks intact, Keith said. Does it run though? Vanessa said, let's find out. The doors to the RV are locked. Well shit, isn't that lovely, Majura said. Let's just break the damn doors so we can get out of this weather, Vanessa said, attempted to find a sizable rock from the ground. No, let's try and find the keys before we do something daft, Keith said, looking around. Let's just break the window, Vanessa said. No. Trust me, the keys have to be somewhere here. What about over there? Kaylin said, pointing at a sign. What does that say? Willem's wacky invention. Is this a damn theme park? Majura said. Vanessa stepped forward, looking at the sign. I think I remember hearing about this. It was meant to open the day after the solar end. Was actually planning on going here with my boyfriend and his family, Vanessa said, her eyes slowly starting to glisten. She rubs them before anyone notices. It's not Six Flags, but I bet he would have enjoyed it. Kaylin squeezes her hand and gives her a reassuring smile. Okay, here's the plan. Majura and I will search around, scavenge anything we can find. Our main objective should be the keys, but if we find anything that can be used as a weapon we take, and we should try and find food and water. If it hasn't expired yet, that is. What about us? Vanessa said, with a hint of annoyance in her tone. Stay here, protect Kaylin. Listen, Boy Scout. I'm not staying out here. Kaylin and I can try and find warmer clothes for us from the gift shop. Keith let out a sigh. Fine, but we will meet back here in 10 minutes. They all agreed and headed in separate directions. Vanessa wanders through the rides, several of which were broken, and inked with blood. Stay close, Kaylin, Vanessa said. She finds a map and locates the gift shop. It's not too far from us. Let's see what we can find. Vanessa notices Kaylin's eyes wandering from place to place. With one hand clutching hers and the other wrapped tightly around her stuffed bear. Kaylin, it's going to be okay. I won't let anything happen to you. Don't say that, Kaylin said. What? Why? My parents. Kaylin starts to whimper. I lost them. I tried sticking with other people, but they usually leave me behind or die trying to save me. I don't want people to die because of me. I'm not going to die, Kaylin. How can you be sure? She snaps at Vanessa, letting go of her hand. I'm not going to let them kill you. You're a kid. I'll be a shitty person if I just stood around and did nothing. They both paused, Vanessa's mind scrabbling to formulate the best thing to say. In the end, her mind only lagged. It's not easy, Kaylin. It's never going to be easy. Life before this was already hard. You've endured so much for your age. Seen things that should never have been seen. If you feel that you're a liability to have around, do this for me, okay? Take that thought and bury it deep, deep into the ground, or into the blank spaces of your mind. All of us would risk our lives for you. You're the future generation of this twisted, fucked up world. Kaylin smiled, reaching for Vanessa's hand, who in turn repaid her gesture by hugging her. They walked further ahead, stopping when Vanessa spotted the gift shop. We're here. Stay close to the door. If anything comes out that isn't me, you run to the others. Vanessa enters the gift shop, taking out her crank flashlight to look around. Vanessa, Kaylin says, be careful. I will. Vanessa replies. Shelves were knocked to the ground, posters were torn apart, a smell of rotten eggs lingered in the air. She considered turning back, but the wind's ferocious bite compelled her to move onward. She found an overturned racket with large coats. They were all torn. Isn't that fucking fantastic? She thought. She looks towards the back of the gift shop. Fuck me. She whispers. Entering the back, she finds boxes everywhere and begins to open them. Posters, stuffed animals, and shirts were in the boxes she'd opened so far. Opening the next box, she gleed, thank God. She said the box contained hoodies and jackets. Lifting the box, she turned and suddenly dropped it. Someone was standing in front of her, holding a baseball bat. Please don't. I'm not a danger to you, Vanessa said. I need these, desperately. I'll take them and leave. WHY?
The voice belonged to a male teenager, who stepped closer to Vanessa, allowing her to get a good look at him. He was a tall, skinny teen with jet black hair and skin as pale as bones. "It's cold out there. The group I'm with is struggling to stay warm. Please, just let me take these to them." "How many of you are there?" he said. "4. The teenager's grip on the bat, although unnerved, remained firm and steady. "Vanessa," Kalen said, standing underneath the doorway. The teenager looks at her, and Vanessa, without thinking, launches at the teenager. As he goes in for a swing, Vanessa ducks underneath, dragging her elbow across his face, dropping him to the ground where she easily overpowered him. She takes the bat away from him and stands in front of Kalen. "Can you lift that box over there?" Vanessa said, to Kalen. "Maybe. Please, I wasn't going to hurt you," the teenager said, pitching his nose. "I just haven't seen anyone in a long time." "What's your name?" Vanessa said. "Timothy, but my friends call me Tim for short. Please don't hurt me. I was going to let you take them. I'm just scared," he cries. "I'm not going to hurt you, kid." Kalen bumps into Vanessa. "Okay. I think I got it. It's a little heavy but I can do it," Kalen said. "Can I join this group?" Vanessa stares blankly at Tim. "Please, I don't want to be alone. We can all share this place. I hardly see any pests around these areas." His eyes darted to Kalen. "I can help carry the box." "Okay," Vanessa said softly. Tim radiates a smile so bright, it almost lit up the darkest corners of the room. He walks towards Kalen, taking the box from her. Vanessa places the tip of the bat at Tim's chest. "If you do anything I don't like." "I won't," Tim interjects. "I won't, I promise." "Okay, then. Walk." "Yes ma'am." She returns to the arranged spot, finding Keith and Majur waiting. "Who's that?" Majur said. "Hey, I'm Tim. It's nice to meet you all. I would shake your hands, but I'm currently holding the box." Vanessa looks at Tim, before turning her gaze at the others he was held up in the gift shop. "He'll be tagging along with us." "Okay. Hey, what's in the box?" Majur said, snuggly attire. Tim replies, "Well Tim, it's nice to meet you. My name is Keith and that's Majur." Tim nods at both of them. Vanessa kneels to Kalen, handing her a wacky Williams toy. "The one you've been carrying is all bruised up and dirty. Figure you'll appreciate an upgrade." "Thanks." Vanessa smiles at Kalen, before looking at Keith. "Did you guys find the keys to the RV?" "No luck, unfortunately," Keith said. "I have the keys," Tim said, placing the box down, and retrieving a set of keys from his pocket. "You're a godsend, Tim," Keith said. "What now?" Majur said, "I mean, we got a warm place to sleep, but after that where do we go?" "Where can we go?" "You guys can stay here. Like I said to these two, the pests are rarely seen here," Tim said. Keith looks at the group. "Okay, we can stay here, until I come up with a plan, but right now I want to get out of this weather." Entering the RV, the group rest peacefully for the first time. Vanessa and Kalen share the bed, while Tim and Majur sleep on the floor. Keith takes the first watch, as everyone sleeps. He looks over the map to pass the time. "Where the hell are we going to go?" he mutters. He sets aside the map, and decides to stretch. That's when he spots something on top of a shelf. A radio. He toys with it, switching channels and turning knobs. "If only you still work," he thinks to himself. As he goes to place it back, his eyes widen. This is a recorded message, to the few that remain. "If there's anyone out there, please I beg you. Survive. Humanity is losing this fight. We cannot offer to be at odds with each other. The pests are growing, becoming more difficult to deal with. We are at the brink of extinction. I beg you, please don't stop fighting. Look around and realize that you are now part of the few that remain. In the face of absolute horror you managed to defy the odds. As monumental as they may seem, your indefatigable demeanor is what we need to overcome this disaster. I beg you. Never. Stop. Fighting. Not even for a second. This is a wreck." Keith turns off the ratio, shell-shocked as to what he just heard. He then places the radio back where he found it. He looks back at others. "Never stop fighting," he whispers to himself, before continuing. "We'll try." The solar end. Finally. "Poor guy, all he wanted was food," said Jamie. "And? He was trying to steal from us. We barely got enough as it is." Gavin replied, "So that grants you the authority to murder someone?" "Really, Jamie?" Gavin rubbed the temple of his forehead, before answering. "I'll make you a proposition, Okay? When this is all over and civilization is rebuilt and restored to its full glory, I will turn myself in. I will plead guilty to all the crimes I commit during the fucking apocalypse. Shit, maybe that Onkit's fellow will interview me, if he's still alive, that is. Jamie frowned, his eyes narrowed at Gavin, his utter lack of mortality was displeasing. Ember? Thoughts? Jamie said. We have orders, Jamie. See, she agrees with me. No, what you did was cruel and inhuman. I'm amazed at how you don't have nightmares. Gavin smiled. Surveying the sky, the sun sank as the moon began to rise. The artistic colorful lights were about to be visible. Still, who knows why he was trying to steal? Maybe he wasn't stealing for himself, but someone else. Shit, they are probably waiting for him to come back. Don't do that, Jamie, Gavin said. Do what? You know what? Got me out here thinking about my actions having consequences and shit. I'm not trying to think about that stuff. Besides, it's better to die by the hands of your kind. Aren't they human? No. They were humans. Not anymore. The solar whatever the fuck made sure of that. It destroyed everything. Totally cataclysm that fucked up the world, he laughed before continuing. The only good thing that we got was that. Gavin pointed at the now colorful sky. Can you two shut up? We're almost at the checkpoint, Amber said. All right, Jamie said, looking up at the sky wondering, maybe it isn't all too bad. They walked further in silence, passing by buildings with shattered windows and dried blood. Look at that, Jamie said, pointing at a wall. Someone spray-painted a firefly. That wasn't here last time, was it? I don't think so, Amber said. The road they walked on had started to become invaded by grass. I guess nature is claiming what it once had, Amber said. Down the road was the Lake Hill Seattle Hospital. Abandoned police vehicles were parked in front of the hospital. When the solar end befell, what remained of the police force established a base of operations in the hospital. Gradually they became overwhelmed by the pests. Bullet casings littered the ground, as jagged incisions penetrated the side of several police vehicles. A few months later, a man named Lance stumbled upon the hospital. He, along with others, decided to turn the hospital into their personal HQ. Many saw this as a ridiculous plan. Why set up an HQ, when the last people who tried, failed? Lance knew that there needed to be a place where people could sleep as well as feel moderately secure. Due to limited options, he'd settle his gaze on the hospital. Hurry up you two. I don't like being out here, at night, Amber said. They entered the hospital by ducking underneath the door. Jamie was the last to enter. Before he did, he glanced back from where they came. Jamie, hurry up. I'm coming. I thought I saw something. Amber led the way, using her cranked flashlight to see where they were going. She stopped at a locked door. She knocked and someone poked their head from the other side, spooking the three. What's the password? Said the teen behind the door. Open the fucking door, Hal. Hal snickered. Hold up, keys jingled in his hands as he unlocked the door, opening it and gesturing to the three to follow him downstairs. So, did anything exciting happen? You guys kill any pests? Jamie looked at Gavin. No, Gavin said. Hal, why were you at the door by yourself? Amber said, we had a breach, on the north side of the hospital. Carlos slept on watch and a handful of pests got in. I was told to wait by the door to let you guys in. I keep telling them to stop letting that idiot be on watch duty, Gavin said. Oh, don't worry. Lance is having a chat with him. Goodbye, Carlos, Amber said. Exiting the stairs, they passed through the hallway. Each room they passed was shrouded in darkness and Jamie couldn't shake the feeling of something watching him. Ahead of them was light. They followed it and turned the corner, finding a man and women guarding a staircase. Gabby, I heard you guys had an exciting day, Amber said, embracing the woman in a hug. We managed to get all of them. Richard nearly got mauled by that one, Gabby said, pointing at a dark room, where a pest laid underneath the doorway. Gavin walked to the pest, lifting its head, taken aback by its feature. These creatures are quite grotesque, huh? Without warning the creature awakes, its pincers snap at Gavin, and its antennas wiggling in the air mindlessly. Holy fuck, I thought you said it was dead. Amber points her pistol at the pest, but Gavin stops her. The lower half of the pest had its body blown off. It attempted to slash at Gavin, who only laughed. He then unsheathed a knife. Jamie, make yourself useful and hold its head still. Jamie didn't move. You're no fucking fun, you know that. Gavin plunges his knife down on the pest's forehead. Its weirdly iridescent blood squirts and streams down his hand. Damn it. he mutters. Then wipes away the blood with his shirt. He cuts one of the pest's pincers and stows it away in his pocket. I'm going to make a necklace out of this. If you guys want, place your orders. He laughs, slapping his hand on his thigh. No one was laughing beside him, but frankly, he didn't care. Out of everybody who died during the solar end, why weren't you among them? Amber said, guess I'm just lucky. Amber rolled her eyes, and walked away. All Gavin could do was laugh. That was until he heard something coming from the unlit desolate room. Come on, let's go, Jamie said. Wait, I think I hear something. Gavin takes out his flashlight, scanning the pitch-black room. He's taken by surprise as something pulls him in. Everyone straightens up. Gavin's blood-curdling pleas for help reverberate through the walls. The sounds of his bones breaking and the abrupt quietness left everyone distraught. Whatever was inside began to approach. Its feet whomp against the floor, as Jamie spotted golden eyes inspecting him. The pest ducked underneath the door, emerging from the darkness, its skin solidified in a rock-like shell. As the group shone their flashlights at the towering pest, they noticed two short antennas on its forehead. Attached to its stomach were two lobster-like claws that held parts of Gavin's flesh. The pest stepped forward, its feet hoofs shaped like a horse. What the actually, fuck, Hal said. None of them have ever dealt with anything like this. It was diabolical in nature. The pest's piss-yellow eyes darted from Jamie to Amber, to Richard until they settled on Hal. The pest took another step and was immediately fired upon. As their bullets clashed with its skin, they'd immediately fell onto the ground. The pest let out a snarl, as it pounced on top of Hal, pinning him to the floor. Its saliva ran down Hal's face. Hal screamed when the pests displayed an array of tiny misshapen teeth. Get him off me. Amber came to Hal's aid and fired her pistol directly at the pest's head. The bullet only left a scorch mark. Suddenly two spider-like appendages burst out from its back, puncturing Amber in the chest. Oh God, just kill it already, Hal continued. The creature retracted its appendages, causing Amber to hit the ground with a loud thud. She falls next to Hal, which caused him to be more unnerved by the situation he found himself in. Hal's sobs became muffled when the pest wrapped its hand around his face. Hal's eyes became bloodshot as his skin started to tighten. The pest popped Hal's head like a balloon. It then rose, tilting its head. Richard, Jamie, and Gabby slowly backpedaled towards the stairs. The pest walked towards them, extending its arms. Gabby points her rifle, as the pest darts at Richard, thrusting its sharp appendages straight into his shoulders. Richard is hoisted off the ground, causing his gun to slip from his hand. Gabby, Richard manages to say. Gabby aims her rifle but doesn't fire right away. Richard moans, as the pest swaddles his face. It then grabs a hold of both his arms. Shoot this fucking thing, Richard said. The pest splits him down the middle, bathing in his blood, as Richard's guts and intestines splat on the ground. Gabby couldn't help but scream in utter terror. The pest advances towards her. No. 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 She fires, before having to chamber another round. She fires again and misses. Her eyes start to water up as she stumbles in inserting another round. Please. Jamie had been quivering in his boots while his companions were being slaughtered in front of him. Despite having a pistol in his clutches, he had not fired a single shot. As the pest closes in on Gabby, he conscripts the courage to fire. He let loose a full clip of his magazine at the pest in hopes to save Gabby. His heroic act was in vain. The pest, with a single swipe of a hand, cracks Gabby's head like a watermelon. The clip of his mag was now empty and Jamie dropped the pistol as the pest snarled at him, its eyes filled with anger and thirst, its spider-like appendages rattling in the air. Jamie ran but was unsuccessful. The pest caught him, wrapping its corroded grumpy hands around Jamie's head, then it pulled. The sound of footsteps ascending the stairs caught the pest's attention. The door Richard and Gabby guarded opened and 6 men walked out. What the fuck, said one of them. The pest slowly stood, as it tossed Jamie's head towards the 6 armed men. All 6 of them raised their guns simultaneously, letting out an orchestra of gunfire. The pest dashes forward. It twirls and latches onto the ceiling, before propelling itself towards 2 of the 6 men. One of the men is pinned to the ground while the other is impaled through the groin. The pest backhands the man it impaled, causing his head to spin, while the other tried to get its foot off of him. The pest slashed at his face, killing him instantly. The remaining few continued in their false bravado to kill the pest. However, it was clear to them that it was not going to work. They went back to the stairs. Only one stayed behind to lock the door. However, the pest simply rammed against it, completely knocking over the door, flattening the guy who tried to lock it. "Oh fuck, it's coming," one of them said. He turned around to fire, but ended up slipping down the stairs. This was a blessing because the pest completely jumped over him, crashing into the other two. Before any of them could fire, the pest struck and punctuated one of them on the head with its appendage. As for the other, he was struck on the shoulder. He lazily lifted his pistol towards the pest. It grabs the pistol and tosses it aside, then pummels the men to death. It only stopped when its balled-up hands were now hitting the floor. Its head snaps at the last man standing. "Please," he cried out. "Please, I don't want to die." The pest slowly walks towards him. "Please," he whispered. The pest grabs a hold of the man's jaw. He punches and kicks with all his might as the pest begins to pull. His body falls to the ground. Its head then snapped at a door, as its ear perched up. In the distance, it heard more footsteps approaching.